Let's talk about what would happen if you just gave up grains for 14 days. What would your life look like? And why the heck would you want to do that? So on this video, I'm going to explain why giving up grains for 14 days literally could be the game changer for weight loss, for energy, for mental clarity, for sleeping better, you name it. I'm going to show you why grains may be that thing that's just not working for you. So let's dive in. Okay, first, I've been dying to say this. I cannot believe I've done, like 1,500 videos here on YouTube before I've actually said this. We have to stop looking at grains, meaning breads and pastas, in one category of food. If you think about the way I've taught you all, when I talk about carbohydrates, I always say there's good carbs and there's bad carbs. There's processed carbs and there's nature's carbs. This is how, when we talk about fats, I do the same thing. Good fats, bad fats. Healthy fats, inflammatory fats. We can't just bulk everything together in the same category and say that is bad. So when I'm talking about grains, there are good grains and there are bad grains. And the grains I want you to give up for 14 days are the bad grains. And I'm going to tell you what those are. And you're going to be very excited to know about the good grains and what makes up a good grain. I'm going to explain that to you on this video as well. But before we even go into it, we have to have this vernacular already in discussion so that you understand what I'm talking about. And I'll even say, just a note to you all, I know everybody loves absolutes. Anytime you're looking for an absolute, like the human body should eat this way, everybody should fast this way, everybody should exercise this way, everybody should take this supplement, now you've lost your way with your health. This is about personalizing your health. That is so important to me, that you take this information and you test it. This is why I'm saying try this for 14 days. What is the difference between a good grain and a bad grain? So a bad grain is a highly processed grain. So this would be, I'm just going to use the most common one that a lot of people eat is your highly processed white bread. Now I'm not talking about sourdough, that's a whole nother discussion, but I'm talking about a white bread or even a highly processed whole wheat bread. Doesn't matter if it's organic or not. If it has been highly processed, it typically doesn't have enough fiber. What that means is with less fiber, it's going to spike your blood sugar. So we need fiber in all the foods we eat as much as possible to be able to keep our blood sugar working and keep it stable. So how would you know if something's a processed grain? Well, let's go read the ingredients and look at how much fiber is on there. How much fiber is on that list? I think it's a really good question to ask yourself. And then the second thing would be look at the ingredients. Are there a lot of chemicals in there? Read them out loud. If you can't pronounce them, they're probably a chemical. So let's look at what the quality of that processed grain is. On the flip side, a really healthy grain, what it has, or how you would know it's healthy, is there are some buzzwords. So for starters, I just told you, low fiber means a processed grain. High fiber means it's probably not going to spike your blood sugar. It's probably not a processed grain. So, but when we look at these healthy grains, they have some qualities and characteristics to them. So one of the things is they're nuttier. They're more sprouted. They're more dense. They take longer to chew. This one, the unhealthy grain, you chew it and it disappears in your mouth. This one, the healthy grain, what ends up happening is you chew it and it takes time to chew. So, and that's largely because it's got so many enzymes in that bread and fiber that it just takes time for you to break it down and move it into your digestive system. That is really good. So sprouted is a key word you can find. Anything sprouted typically has those enzymes. It has those qualities in it. So the other thing you can look at over here, and this is my favorite one, is any bread that is fermented. If a bread has been fermented, that means that in the fermented process, there have been enzymes and probiotics that have come to the surface that will help you digest that bread. Sourdough is a great example of this. Now, homemade sourdough, amazing. That's your best bet. But, let's get if you can get an organic, local's really good, not like these big bread makers. We want the smaller guy, perhaps, that is taking a little more of an artisan approach to a sourdough, and make sure that it's truly a sourdough bread. It should be sour in your mouth. The more sour, the more fermented it is. So the more enzymes it will have. So this is why we've got these two different ways of looking at grains. Now, I want to come back over here and just say that this highly refined bad grain is going to spike your blood sugar. It's going to make you more hungry. It's going to create more inflammation. It's going to make you gain weight. I mean, the list is long. You come over here to the healthy grains. This is going to actually, I don't fear a carbohydrate. I hope you all know that. I love going low carb the way I explained it in Fast Like a Girl for certain parts of our cycle. And I eat carbs a lot when I'm trying to raise progesterone. When I had a cycle, I would put it in the back half of the cycle and I would eat bread. Why would you want to eat these good grains? Well, they can be really good for raising things like serotonin. Believe it or not, we actually know that certain breads can elevate your serotonin levels and make you happier. Try eating a piece of sourdough, really good sourdough bread with some grass-fed butter on it, and let me know a half an hour after you eat it how you feel. It can actually raise serotonin. It also, because of all the enzymes and all of the quality ingredients in it, it can kill hunger. This doesn't kill hunger. So we've got to really, again, separate this out. I know that was a long intro to why I want you to give up grains for 14 days, but I've never had this conversation with you all, and it's really important we have it. So with that in mind, what we're going to give up for 14 days are these processed bad grains. And now it's not just bread. It can be in cookies. It can be in cakes. It can be in pastas. So the more highly refined the grain, the more it's going to cause you to gain weight, the more it's going to affect your hunger, the more it's going to create inflammation, the more energy crashes it's going to give you, the more mood changes you're going to have. So this is what we're giving up for 14 days. Ready? Here's what happens. I promise you, I've got 7 things you're going to see that is going to happen when you give up these bad grains for 14 days. First, you're going to see your blood sugar stabilize. That's great. It's awesome. That means you're going to get off this roller coaster, up, down, up, down. How would you know if your blood sugar wasn't stable? You could obviously get a CGM. I'm a huge fan of the continuous glucose monitors that go on the back of your arms. Phenomenal. Then you can look and see what these grains are doing. But if you don't have the resources to do that, or you don't want to do that, then you know that your blood sugar is unstable when you can't go without food for more than a couple hours. Those of you that are like, I'm hangry, that is because you have a blood sugar system that is on a roller coaster. And one of the ways you get off that roller coaster is by getting off these refined, processed grains. Okay, second thing that will happen to you when you get off this junk over here is that you will repair the gut lining, the inner lining of your gut. Now, why is that? How does a grain affect the inner lining of your gut? Well, depending on where you live in the world, I can tell you here in the United States that most of the highly processed grains that go into breads are sprayed with a chemical called glyphosate. And glyphosate will destroy the inner lining of your gut. So we want to make sure that you don't destroy that inner lining, because if you destroy it, what happens is undigested food, even healthy undigested food, toxins, they go into your bloodstream and they start to create this inflammatory process. So we want to make sure that we protect this gut lining. So you get this processed grains off, get it out of your diet for 14 days, and now all of a sudden you've helped your gut lining. That's cool. That's a really good thing. That's only number 2 good thing. Okay, number 3. You're going to feel inflammation go down. Now, how would you know if you got off grains for 14 days that your inflammation was going down? Well, there's 2 ways that I can tell you right away you'd notice. Your joint mobility. How does it feel to move your arms? How does it feel to sit down and stand up? If you're like, oh, I'm getting old, this is not working for me, that's inflammation. And so when you get off grains, you're going to see that you move around and your joints move with more ease because the inflammation has gone down. Second thing is brain fog. Brain fog is a real chronic sign of chronic inflammation. So if you're one of those people that you're like, what was I doing? Can't really stay on task. That is could because your brain is inflamed, and grains can do that for you. Okay, check this out. I have a free fasting guide for you all. It's free. And it's going to teach you all the basics of fasting. It's going to teach you how to kill hunger when you fast, which is really cool. And it's going to show you how to break your fast, among many other things. All you got to do is click on this link right here and enjoy. Okay, number 4. Now, I've talked about this recently a lot. So if this is a new concept, go back and watch some of my other videos. But what we know is that when cells are inflamed, nutrients can't get in and toxins can't get out. So that's a big problem. So what will happen when you get off grains is now all those supplements you take, all those veggies you eat that you're like, I don't really like them, but I eat them because they're healthy. All those nutrients are going to get into the cell and activate the cell, and the cell is going to work better for you. You're going to notice energy increase. Everything will work better for you. Okay, you'll heal better, you'll think better, you'll move better because the cell got what it needed. Number 5. You're going to get off grains for 14 days. Remember? The bad grains. And this is number 5. You're going to watch your hunger go away. So those of you that are struggling to fast and you're like, my hunger is so prevalent. Get off grains for 14 days and then come back and tell me if your hunger went away. I promise you it will, because I saw this in my clinic over and over and over again. Okay, number 6. I've already alluded to this. It's going to decrease joint pain. So those of you in chronic pain, I'm going to ask that you get off every single grain. This includes things like beer, some of the whiskeys, some of those alcohols come from grain. So let's get off that and see if your joints move a lot better. Just try it and see how it works. And then the last one is you're going to notice better sleep. Now, I notice this a lot on my Aura Ring, because I can start to see that my sleep will improve with my HRV goes up, my deep sleep and REM sleep go up. I don't do these kind of processed grains. I will do the healthy grains sometimes. But I can tell you that the more, we've seen this in our Reset Academy group, is that the more processed grains that are eaten, the lower the HRV, which is a stress response, and the worse deep and REM sleep are. So let's see how your sleep goes. Let's see how that works. So that's 7 reasons to give up these bad grains. So let me know if that's helpful, because again, I think we have to separate out the question of bad grains versus good grains. So let's make sure that we're clear on that, and then try it for 14 days. And here's what I'm really going to ask that you do. You watch this video, go try it, come back and report back, put it in the comments. And those of you who've given up grains years ago, again, let's support the people that are going to try this, but might be a little bit like, oh God, I don't know if I can do this. Just give a little love and a little support in the comments so that we can make sure that we're cheering them on, because we are a community here on YouTube. These are the 4 warning signs that you're eating too many carbs. Let's dive into this, because I want you to master carbs. They're not evil, but maybe you're eating too many of them. Let's talk about this for a hot moment. So first, I want to bring your attention to macronutrients. There are 3 of them. There are carbohydrates, there are protein, and there's fat. When you look at these 3 nutrients, macronutrients, when we ingest them, they all have a different glucose response. That's called the glycemic index. So the glucose response of carbohydrate is that you're going to get a big spike and you're going to follow that by a big crash. So as high as your blood sugar goes is going to be as low as your blood sugar would go. Then protein doesn't have as big of a spike, and so it's like a little more gentle lift, and so you get kind of this uplift, but doesn't go as high as carbs, and then it'll kind of gently come down. So something interesting about those 2, the carbs and the protein, that I really want you to understand is that when you're doing like a pure carb bomb, like a bowl of cereal, and it's just milk and grains or oatmeal. That's why I'm not a fan of oatmeal. You're just getting this big increase of glucose, and then you get this crash pretty quickly. Soon after that, it makes you hungry again. So you eat again, and then you crash, and then you eat, and then you crash. So this is a big problem with carbs. With protein, you don't get that. If you had, let's say for breakfast, even berries and Greek yogurt, or you had eggs and some sausages, it's much more protein filled, so you're not gonna see that up and down as dramatically, and you're not gonna be as hungry, you're gonna have more energy, and ultimately you won't store as much fat. Now, that leads me to the third macronutrient, which is fat. And this is why you'll hear me talk a lot about a fasted snack and how you can eat things in your fasting window. I spoke about it in Fast Like a Girl. I really dove into the fasted snack idea. It was based off of research that I found that showed that if you could eat a pure fat bomb and elongate your fast a little bit more, that you got all the incredible metabolic benefits of somebody who shut the fast down early because they were hungry. So like if you got hungry at 15 hours of fasting and you were like, oh, I'm going to break my fast, and you eat, that person didn't lose as much weight as the person who said, hey, I'm going to have a fat bomb and try to go another 2 or 3 hours. They actually lost more weight. And that's because that fat just stabilizes blood sugar, like puts the brakes on blood sugar. So with those 3 macronutrients in mind, let's dive into knowing how you eat too many carbs. And the first way you know you're eating too many carbs, specifically in one meal, is that you get fatigued. So you should be energized after a meal. You shouldn't be sleepy after a meal. Those of us, this is why we fall asleep after like a big meal, like a holiday meal. In the States here, we have Thanksgiving. If you celebrate Christmas, you might find it after Christmas. But you get all these carbs that come in, and we used to say for years it was the tryptophan in turkey. It's not the tryptophan. It's that your blood sugar went up so high that all of a sudden now you come crashing down. So you want to make sure that if you're fatigued after a meal, you reverse engineer that meal and go, maybe it had too many carbs. One interesting thing was that a 2020 study found that blood sugar spikes cause fatigue and trouble concentrating. So if you get that mid-afternoon slump after you eat lunch, it's possible that you ate too many carbs. So you're going to see one of the ways you'll know you did too many carbs at a meal is that it's going to be that combination of fatigue and loss of mental clarity. Second thing that tells you you're eating too many carbs, and that is food craving. Okay, this is really interesting. Again, let's go back to this idea that blood sugar is coming up and then it comes crashing down. So if you're going up and then it comes down very, very quickly because you had just like this pure carb meal, when it comes down, your body's so smart that it's going to be like, hey, I need you to eat more carbs again to bring that up. So it's going to be up and down and up and down, and you're going to be like, I feel better. I'm tired now. I need something sweet or caffeinated to bring my energy up. And usually the thing that you'll crave in these down moments is more carbs. So it's really interesting that there is a 2011 study that divided people into 2 groups. I love these kind of studies. It was a low carb, high fat group, and then it was a high carb, low fat group. And what they found is that the low carb group had a significant decrease in food cravings, especially for sugar and high carb. Okay, well that makes sense. They didn't get this dip where the body said, give me more carbs. They didn't have, if they were doing more protein, they had just sort of a gentle lift and then it came down, not as up and down. So those cravings stopped. They also saw a decrease in hunger overall. Those that had a high carb diet in the morning had the worst craving. That's because you started your day off with all of those carbs. This is why I'm not a fan of breakfast cereal. I'm not a fan of orange juice. I'm not even a fan sometimes of protein drinks if you don't get enough protein and fat in it and it's just a carb-rich meal. What we typically eat for breakfast is causing us more cravings in the afternoon. So getting low carb right is really important. And if you're going to have a higher carb meal, personally, I think mid-afternoon, like after the work is done, not too late at night, but maybe for an early dinner, 4 or 5, go for a walk afterwards. You use those glucose. That glucose could be really important. Okay, the third reason that you're struggling with or know that you ate too many carbs is when you struggle with weight loss. For years in my clinic, I would do a lot of low carb plans for my patients. And they just worked like a charm. I mean, people would come in and they'd be like, I have a fundraiser I'm going to, I have a wedding I'm going to, I have a time period, I need something quick. And we would do low carb mixed with some different fasts, and it just melted off. So the third one is if you're struggling to lose weight, low carb is really an awesome plan. Now, low carb doesn't mean low protein. So if you bring down your carbs and increase protein, your hunger will go away. You'll be a lot more satisfied. And you continue to lose weight. So low carb doesn't mean starvation. An interesting 2004 study found that 6 months on a low carb diet led to twice as much weight loss than a high carb diet. So sometimes these prepackaged diet foods that you can get out there are really high in carbs, and they might be low in calorie, but their carb load is so high that it's not a long-term effect or way to sustain weight loss. So really interesting, 6 months on a low carb diet. So really important. If you're struggling to lose weight, let's get off the carbs. Okay, number 4 is really interesting. And it's something we don't talk about when we're looking at carbs, and that is it. The one way you would know you're eating too many carbs is if you start to have skin problems. So eating a lot of carbs can start to create an inflammatory response in your skin. This is especially true in this study that I'm about to quote, when we ate too much sugar, white rice, and refined bread. Now let's talk about those 3 before I tell you about the study. Sugar. If you have acne and you want to clean up your skin, I highly recommend you get off sugar and just give it a try and see what you find. So getting off of sugar can help with the acne. But what this 2020 review, so they reviewed a lot of different articles, found was that when the glycemic load in people's diets went up, so that's the amount of sugar that they ate, they saw greater increases in skin inflammation and acne. And they related this review related it back to an increase in all carbs, but specifically sugar. So it's really been interesting to be in the nutritional world, teaching different types of ways to eat for the last 26 years, but really here for you all on YouTube. I've been dedicated to giving you videos for the last 10 years on topics like this. And I think what's really interesting about the low carb movement is we've gone from this place where everybody was like, it's amazing, I lost so much weight and I feel so good and I have so much mental clarity, to people villainizing it. And one of the problems that we have is we're always looking for absolutes. You're just never going to find an absolutely perfect diet or an absolutely perfect fast that will work for everybody. It's what works for you. So when we look at carbs, they're not the enemy, but man-made carbs, not a lot there. I would say the only one I've been really thinking a lot about that I'm bringing back into my diet is sourdough bread. Yeah, that you have to grow the wheat, but it's fermented. That's why I like it. It's a man-made. It has to be processed. That wheat has to be processed. But outside of that, when you're eating like a pasta, it's just a dead food. There's nothing in there. Sourdough bread has a lot of enzymes and probiotics in it, so it's a live food. It's actually not a dead food. So a lot of these man-made carbs are just dead, and they have these high glycemic spikes. So I really want to bring back this idea that we start talking about good carbs and bad carbs. And bad carbs are what I just talked about. They're man-made carbs, and good carbs are nature's carbs. So this is anything that comes from the earth. So this is really your fruits and your vegetables are the main ones, and your potatoes. Quinoa fit in there. So if quinoa has a lot of protein in it. So I think we have to really look. I love these 4 things. I love you looking and saying, okay, am I sleepy after a meal? Am I struggling to lose weight? I'm even going to throw in the brain fog. Do I have brain fog after a meal? Am I craving a lot of sugary things? And what's my skin look like? And then once you dial these 4 things in, then could you ask yourself, okay, maybe I'm eating too many carbs. Well, what if I just for tomorrow, like you could watch this video and do this tomorrow. Like what if just for the next week I decide no man-made carbs. I'm only eating nature's carbs. Do that challenge and then see how you feel, because I think you'll find that the earth has created a lot of good carbs that are great for making neurotransmitters like serotonin. They're great for making hormones like progesterone. We need them. I'm not anti-carb. I just want to make sure we're eating smart carbs. We're eating them for women at the right time of our cycle, and that we're not overdoing carbs. And I think these 4 things will help you get in the ballpark on that. So let me know in the comments if that helped, if that kind of gave you a paradigm shift on carbohydrates. It's really important to me that I'm giving you videos that are expanding your mind, and so let me know if you resonated with that. I'd also love to know which one of these 4 that you use to tell yourself that you have eaten too much carbs. I can tell you, for me, the biggest one is fatigue. If I'm tired after a meal, I'm like, what'd I do to that meal? Think maybe I didn't have that meal dialed in. As always, you're a miracle. And the food industry has tried to take that away from you and give you a bunch of toxic food. But when you move away from those toxic foods, you start to understand your body better, and you eat what the earth has provided from us, you'll discover what a miracle you are. Okay, you know how when you're trying to get in and out of fat burner, sugar burner, and sometimes you struggle? It might be that you have a metabolic blocker that's at play here. Want to know what those blockers are? Click on the link above and I'll take you straight to a giveaway, and you can have my list of metabolic blockers. So on this video, we've got to talk about the number 1 carb, like the worst carb for your health. And it doesn't matter if you are trying to lose weight, or you're trying to prevent a chronic disease, or you're trying to heal from an autoimmune condition. This carb is literally worse than sugar. So on this video, we're going to walk through what that carb is, why does this happen when you eat this carb, and what you can do to replace it with something a whole lot healthier. Okay, for starters, I hope you all are reading ingredient labels. So that's the first thing to really navigate this carb that I want to talk about here. You've got to be able to navigate an ingredient label. And you have to start by looking at the ingredient label. So my first question, and you put it in the comments, because I hope this is like all of you raising your hand there and saying, yes, I do this. When you buy a food, do you look at the ingredient label? If you don't, then before I even dive into this, you need to do that. You have to read the ingredients. Second thing, what you need to know about an ingredient label is that the ingredients are put in the order of the amount that is in that product. So things that are listed out first, there's going to be more of those compared to the things that are listed at the end of the ingredient label. So with that in mind, this is more deadly than sugar, and it is a carb that is put in the ingredients. So it's not necessarily like a food product you're going to see on the shelf in your grocery store. It's more something that is in almost all foods, especially very sweet food. Any guesses what it is? High fructose corn syrup. So high fructose corn syrup is the most deadly carbohydrate on the planet. So you got to read the ingredients to know if it's in a food or not. You're going to find they're in breads and cakes and pastas, cookies. They're in so many food products. So that's the first thing to be aware of. Now, what it turns out, why high fructose corn syrup is so much worse for your body than sugar is because it bypasses your bloodstream. When you eat high fructose corn syrup or a product with high fructose corn syrup in it, it's not even going into your bloodstream, it's going straight to your liver. It does not get utilized by the bloodstream like other sugars are. It just goes straight to the liver, and in small amounts, your liver is able to break down fructose. So for example, fruit is high in fructose. It has a lot of fiber. A lot of fruit has really good fiber that's great for the microbiome. And yes, in small amounts, even the fructose from sugar is going to go to the liver. But it's not damaging because it's small amounts and the liver is able to handle small amounts. With high fructose corn syrup, we have two major problems. Is that because it's a synthetic version of fructose that has been derived from corn, it actually goes straight to the liver, and because it is so high on the glycemic index, it's such a man-made synthetic toxic form of sugar, it immediately damages the liver. And then if you are eating these products over and over again, you are creating something called fatty liver disease, which non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is definitely on the rise as we're seeing food companies not take this one ingredient out of their products. Now, something I want to bring this home to those of you that are fasting. I want to bring this home to those of you that are working on your hormonal health, what the liver does, because the liver next to the brain is the hardest working organ in our body. So it not only has to detoxify, but your liver makes cholesterol, your liver breaks and burns fat, and your liver will make certain nutrients and break down in certain nutrients into creating glutathione, which is a detoxifier for your whole system. So the liver is pretty darn important. We want to keep it in good shape. And what we know about high fructose corn syrup is that when it gets to the liver, because the liver can't break it down, guess where the liver decides to put that high fructose corn syrup? It stores it as fat. So you have two major problems here. You've got the issue where, oh my gosh, it's damaging the liver, making it harder for you to burn fat. And because the liver can't break down high fructose corn syrup, it goes and it puts it and stores it as fat. This is the root of why we have an obesity epidemic in our world, and our food companies and our government, the governments that are regulating these food companies, are not pulling high fructose corn syrup out of our food system. And this is why I wanted to highlight it here, because this is the root of what is going on with the obesity challenge. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you the links, and what we know is the more high fructose corn syrup that you eat, the more you can contribute to fatty liver disease. So those of you who already know you have fatty liver disease, pull this ingredient out. It's in sodas, it's in the products I talked about. Those of you who want to prevent that, make sure that you're not eating those ingredients. But those of you that are trying to metabolically switch, get over here into this fat burning place and you're struggling, I'm going to ask you to go into your pantry right now and read your ingredients and look where you may be ingesting high fructose corn syrup, because your liver isn't going to be able to get into ketosis. It's not going to be able to burn fat as long as this ingredient continues to be in your diet. That is how important it is to pull it out. Okay, and that's just the first thing. Second thing that high fructose corn syrup does is that it is pro-inflammatory. It inflames the body. So when inflammation comes in the body, not only does that lead to brain fog, not only does that make you feel swollen. Those of you that are working on making sure you don't get a bloated belly, those of you that have chronic pain in joints, those of you with migraines, those of you with trouble focusing, what we know is anything that's pro-inflammatory is going to exasperate those symptoms. So it's really interesting, because there is a study that I'm going to put in the links here, that a 2022 study found that high fructose corn syrup not only is worse than table sugar, but it greatly increased a marker on your blood that you will be able to see called C-reactive protein. So any of you that have had blood work drawn recently, go and look at your C-reactive protein, because if that's increased or towards the end of the high end of the range, there's a good chance it's coming from ingesting high fructose corn syrup. So it's pro-inflammatory. Those of you that have chronic pain and you're like, I'm struggling to get the joint pain to go away, try pulling high fructose corn syrup out of your diet and see if that inflammation goes down. Those of you that are feeling bloated because of maybe menopause and your body's ability to break down hormones, high fructose corn syrup is only going to exacerbate your menopausal symptoms and contribute to more of the bloat. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to get this ingredient out. Now, the third thing I want to say about this, and why I started with the ingredient label and reading that, is that high fructose corn syrup, once you start to look around, it's everywhere. So it's hidden in foods. And so anything that has a sweetness to it, you want to check and make sure that it doesn't have high fructose corn syrup in there, because that sweetness could be contributed because of high fructose corn syrup. Now, here's the catch. It's not just in desserty things. It can be in bacon, it can be in sausage, it can be in granolas, it's in some yogurts, it's in nut butters, it's in breads. I've even gone into the grocery store and seen keto bread with high fructose corn syrup, which makes no sense at all. So hopefully you can see that I'm ridiculously passionate about this. I'm mostly mad at the food industry for allowing this toxic ingredient to permeate our foods, but we have to start voting with our dollars, which means we have to look at the ingredients and put down and stop buying those foods that are high in fructose corn syrup, because they're killing people. And this is what our food industries, or the FDA here in America, should be protecting us against, but they're not. So we've got to take back control for our own selves. Now, what's your alternative? So what if you like fructose? What if you like sweetness? What can you look at? Now, I will tell you that when it comes to sweetness in my family, we focused on fruit. So yes, fruit has fructose in it, but it also has fiber and it has small amounts of fructose, so it's easier for the liver to break down, as opposed to high fructose corn syrup has high amounts of fructose and is synthetic and harder for the liver to break down. So if you're trying to get off some of those sweets, I encourage you to start by just moving to fruit. Just try that for a week. Try it for 2 weeks, where you get all this prepackaged food out of your house. Just throw it away. Get it out so it's not tempting you. And then fill your fruit basket and try to change your taste buds just by adding fruit in. That step alone will allow so many of you to get into a deeper ketosis, burn more fat, lose more weight, and ultimately save your life. Second thing is that you're going to need to really start to read ingredients. And I think a lot of us have gotten lazy because the ingredient lists keep changing. They're long. They put fake words in there like natural flavorings, which Vani Hari for the Food Babe, I interviewed her on a Resetter podcast, said that the next to high fructose corn syrup, natural flavors is one of the worst ingredients because they can shove all the toxic food ingredients into one category called natural flavors. So we've got to read labels. We've got to ideally avoid foods that even have a label and move towards foods that don't have a label. And then that way, and then if you have a sweet tooth, move to fruit. Fruit is a phenomenal, the earth has provided you a sweet little treat that has so many upsides to it. But high fructose corn syrup is absolutely the one that needs to be out. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do, because I know that many of you have been watching me for a while, and we have a vast array of people in their nutritional knowledge. So put in the comments, I want to know if you ever really understood how damaging high fructose corn syrup was to your liver, how it contributed to fat, and how it promoted inflammation. So if that's brand new, just put it in the comments, let me know. Those of you who are like, hey, I already knew this. Thank you, Dr. Mindy, but I already knew this. What I'm going to ask you to do is help the people in our community here. How did you get off high fructose corn syrup? Well, if you were on it, how did you get off of it? And what are some of your favorite strategies when that sweet tooth comes in? What do you like to go to? Because I think a lot of people know cakes and cookies and little desserty treats like that. But when you take that away, they're like, well, what am I supposed to eat for dessert? There's a lot of things you can eat for dessert. And some of you are already eating them. So go ahead and put it in the comments so we can all learn from them, from you. So, yep, I really wish I didn't have to do this video. I really wish our food industry would protect us, but they're not. So we got to take back control by reading labels and voting with our dollars. And that means not purchasing food with high fructose corn syrup in it. As long as we keep purchasing it, the food industry is going to say, well, that's okay. I'm going to keep making it. We send a message the moment we stop purchasing it. And not only are you going to save money, not only are you going to save your health, but you're going to be a part of a new paradigm, a new solution that emerges in healthcare that has nutrition at the forefront of it. So, as always, I hope that helped. Okay, you trying to maximize your weight loss? Apple cider vinegar may be the key. Go check out this video where I show you exactly when, how, and why you want to use it for weight loss. Apple cider vinegar changes your microbiome of your gut. This good bacteria is going to help to bring your blood sugar down and make it so that you can switch over into the fat burning state.